Welcome to today's program, and I am in the great city of Nashville, Tennessee, with a dear friend who is an American who came over to take Britain by storm. His name is RT Kendall, and RT Kendall had the most amazing job. He took over Westminster Chapel from Dr. Martyn Lloyd Jones. And I just find it fascinating, RT, that you were able to step in the shoes of such a great man. How did that come about? First of all, tell us a bit about Dr. Martyn Lloyd Jones.
Well, he was my mentor and like my father. And our relationship began in 1963 in Indiana, Winona Lake, Indiana. He was a speaker there and I was a pastor in Ohio. Drove to see him because I'd been reading his book, Sermon on the Mount, that changed my preaching style. Mm-hmm. And little did I know that one day I would be in that pulpit where he had preached those sermons from Matthew 5, 6, 7. And years later, we renewed fellowship, and I don't know how much you want me to go into.
Yeah, we want to know, because this man, he was quite tiny in stature, but was he a surgeon or something at one time?
Well, he was once the king's physician. Well, let's put it this way. He was assistant to Lord Horder, who was the king's physician.
Yes.
Had Dr. Lloyd Jones stayed in medicine, he would have become the king's own physician. But he felt called into the ministry and therefore gave up medicine and became a minister.
And it's interesting that many of the Calvary Chapel stations will be broadcasting this, and Dr. Lloyd Jones was a bit of a hero for Chuck Smith.
Yes,
you know?
Well, he told me that. I used to go to see Doctor every Thursday for 2 hours for 4 years. It was just a regular appointment. One day he came in, or I came into him, and he says, "I met a man today by the name of Chuck Smith." Chuck Smith. And he loved saying that. I said, "Who is he?" He said, "Well, I was very taken by him." And he was saying how that Chuck Smith had claimed that Dr. Lloyd Jones had affected his preaching style.
Sure.
But he told me that story.
Wow, because Chuck does this verse-by-verse teaching. And now, Dr. Lloyd Jones was an amazing Bible teacher, but he didn't believe in humor, I understand. It was always very
Well,
straight.
that's not true.
It's not?
That's
Okay.
true. I did believe in it.
Yeah.
And when I would sometimes make people laugh, whether on purpose or accident, and he'd be there, he'd say, "Do that. You do that."
That's great.
He said, "I did it." But he's not known for that.
Yes.
He's
yeah.
not known for that.
Okay.
But it wasn't against it. And I'll tell you something else he said to me once. Nobody will believe he said it. He said to me, "Let's face it, a minister must be a bit of a showman."
Wow.
Martyn Lloyd Jones said that to me.
That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. So take us to the very day when you stepped into that pulpit for the first time. Were you nervous?
Well, yes. When I first went there, I just accepted an invitation to preach so I could tell all my friends that I preached at Westminster Chapel. And I didn't expect anything to come from it.
Yeah.
We were at Oxford, as you may know. We didn't go to England to be the minister of Westminster Chapel. I went to do my DPhil at Oxford. And 3 years at Oxford, and then I was invited to preach at Westminster Chapel. Huh. And at the end of the day, all the deacons marched into the vestry, wanted to talk to me. I said, "What's up? Am I in trouble?" I said, "No, we want you to stay.
Wow.
We want you to stay." They had been without a minister for 3 years.
Yeah.
And it hadn't crossed their minds, hadn't crossed my mind, that anything would come of it. What happened, that a man who had heard me preach in my little church near Oxford called the Westminster Chapel deacon and said, "You ought to have a man by the name of RT Kendall." Huh. And so the man called Dr. Lloyd Jones. Wow. And said, "We've been told we should have an RT Kendall here." Lloyd Jones said, "Oh yes, have him, have him." Theologian, you know, but have him. Those are his very words.
Wow.
Well then, when they asked me to stay, Dr. Lloyd Jones came to hear me. At that time, I was just there for 6 months because I told them I had to get back to America. Well, they said, "Would you stay 6 months?" And during that time, Dr. Lloyd Jones would come to hear me. And the first time he came to hear me, he called me that night. He said, "You are a preacher. Your place is not in a seminary or a university. You belong to the pulpit." You are a born preacher. And he told that word to everybody. And the word went all around. And I became his choice. Wow. And he's the one that put me in Westminster Chapel.
That's wonderful. Now, was there any opposition because you were an American?
Not that I could tell. I got 92% of the vote. They asked, would I let them vote on me?
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay.
Yeah.
92%. Lloyd Jones called me that night. He said, that's a better vote than I would have got. He said, that's a better vote than Campbell Morgan got. 92%. He said, that's good. And I was disappointed it wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
I don't think any opposition to me was because I was American. That never came up. That never came up.